Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Smart Money Show. My name is Naman Akhtar, and as usual, I'm joined by Ali Suleiman. How's things going?
I'm good, bro. I was just saying before we hit record, it feels like it's been a while since I've been in the hot seat. Thank you for carrying me last episode. I was on a much needed break. It feels like I've been non-stop off my internship and stuff, and I was on a much needed holiday, which I really really enjoyed. But I'm glad to be back. It's a busy week ahead for us. We're gonna do like 5 or 6 filmings in 8 days, which is gonna be amazing. But
I'm shooting off to Pakistan as well,
exactly,
aren't I? So,
yeah, so it's going to be really good. I mean, we've got breaks coming up. Obviously, the start of uni's around the corner, that sort of stuff. Summer's gone. Oh, applications as well. Yeah,
yes, like literally at the time of the recording, yesterday, like 7, 8 applications open for summer internships or like
yeah.
the biggest firms out there. So.
Yeah, same for grads as well. So it's non-stop. But we're back. We're back now. So we're already in September somehow. But obviously, it's enough about us. I hope our audience, our listeners and viewers, our regulars and new ones are had a good summer and are prepping for the start of school or uni or whatever it may be. But today we're joined by yet another finance professional, and like we always do on the Smart Money Show. And so today we're joined by Jag. So she's a chartered accountant, a career coach, and content creator with 8 years of corporate experience at the Big Four and at IBM. Having been double promoted to manager in under 4 years, she knows firsthand both the highs and the challenges of professional growth. Through coaching, whether it's YouTube, where she has built an audience of over 4,000 subscribers, or her blog and her book, Accounting for Beginners, The Basics, a cake shop edition, which we'll touch on, Jag is passionate about helping ambitious professionals thrive. She also hosts the ICAEW Student Insights podcast, continuing her mission to guide the next generation of accountants and finance professionals. Beyond her corporate and coaching journey, Jag has experience in teaching and is a certified gym instructor and personal trainer, reflecting her belief that success is about more than the 9 to 5, which we'll touch on near the end of this episode. So this conversation will explore how she built her career, her lessons on balancing work, exams, and life, and how young professionals like me, Naman, and the rest of you guys watching and listening can grow with confidence while shaping careers that align with your very own ambitions and values. So without further ado, very, very excited to welcome Jag onto the show. Jag, how are you?
I'm good. That was a really, really nice and in-depth intro. So thank you for that.
No worries. I think it's a very, very deserved and very modest. We're excited to really get into it and prove that that intro was deserved throughout the episode. So,
I hope so.
Just having someone who's got such a different range of experiences,
yeah,
I know it would be great value to our viewers and listeners, wouldn't it?
yeah, 100%. Do you want to kick off the one? I'll give you the privilege of doing that.
So yeah, as usual now, everyone knows we always start off and kick off an episode by just looking at the background of the guest we have on today. So I'm going to ask a very, very broad question to you, Jag. So what were you like growing up? And how has your education journey been like?
Okay, so yeah, where shall I start? Okay, so thinking back, I always kind of take it back to, do you know what? Even I can go as far as primary school, but maybe that's very far. I don't know. I've so this I'll just say what I'll say. So I started off in primary school, and I remember I was always naturally really good at maths, and I loved maths. But I want to caveat that with the fact that to be a chartered accountant, I really don't think you need to be good at maths. So I just wanted to throw that out there in case someone just thought, oh, obviously she's good at maths, and that led her down her path. But I always just really loved it, really enjoyed it. It sounds quite nerdy, but I don't think I think I was always a person in school. I guess I would kind of ask questions, maybe kind of be the louder one in the class, to be honest. So I went to an all girls grammar school. So the standards there anyway were quite high. So even if I was still, I would say, a well behaved student on the whole, um, it was just kind of that type of school where um, everyone kind of had to maintain a type of behavior. So yeah, I really enjoyed school, to be honest. Had a really good group of friends, which I was really, really fortunate with. And yeah, so I kind of always did well in school. I think I was always the type of person where it was when it came to exams, I knew what I needed to do well. So kind of throughout the year, I wouldn't really stress myself out too much. I think, I'd hear kind of teachers say, oh, she's not achieving her potential. And I just kind of know that I always kind of knew methods and ways to kind of get to where I needed to be. So, yeah, I guess I always studied really hard. So when it came to exams, I'd absolutely put my head down, study. I was always actually really quite career focused as well, even from a young age. So maybe that is because of the school that I went to, and that was something I was brought up with. I think in my household, my dad, he's always been really big on education and always been really forward looking. So I think that kind of helped me growing up as well. I think I've always kind of known that I've wanted to go down kind of like a corporate career as yeah, I think I've always known I've wanted to end up in kind of a corporate career, but I think during growing up, it wasn't always clear to me that it was, say, accountancy. So I think I maybe thought during school I'd potentially look into becoming an accountant. But then it was my dad who kind of said, you're a bit more outgoing, like you're more conversational, maybe try something else that's more suited to you. And I thought, okay, I guess that was kind of the stereotypical type of accountancy role. Whereas actually, there are so many different accountancy roles that require really strong communication skills. But at the time, I think we were just kind of thinking about, if you're just working in an office and just bookkeeping the whole time. So I kind of went off it from there. I did various kind of insight days. I would always kind of just try and get bits on my CV and doing different. I've always done loads of different classes. I think I can't still, to be honest. I think growing up, I was kind of in karate classes or just doing some sort of extracurricular stuff. I yeah, what did I do? Trying to think. Um, yeah, I was doing kind of Duke of Edinburgh. I was doing things to really, I was always thinking about kind of my personal statement, building that kind of 360 picture, having kind of part-time jobs and just really juggling a lot of things. And I think that's really helped me as I've grown into then into having to work and study. I've always been kind of accustomed to it as well. So appreciate I've kind of just said a lot.
No, no, no. Yeah.
Is there anything you want me to touch on more?
No, I mean
Or
we had a couple of questions, but on kind of like school and family, but you've touched on that brilliantly, and I think that's why we always like to kick off with a question just phrased like that, because if we think it really, I always say this in every episode, I think no one's fed up, but we think it provides a frame to the picture we're trying to paint throughout the episode, and so I think I just want to ask about: did you ever doubt your ability to kind of succeed as an accountant? Did you ever doubt your ability to maybe get into the big four like you did? And if you did have doubt or potentially even like experience uncertainty, how did you push through that aspect of it?
So it's quite interesting. I think because I've always been really kind of career driven, even in uni, I did kind of like an elective in a careers module where I kind of learned about, tailoring your CVs and the different types of CVs. I think as I'd always done a lot of applications, so I'd done kind of a Teach First Insight program, I'd done a placement, yeah, with IBM. I'd done various things. So I think naturally as well, where I feel I'm quite strong at the kind of numerical tests and things. I think I've always kind of also done fairly well in the interviews and assessment centre. So it sounds like I'm really blowing my own trumpet, but I think it's just based off doing a lot of them and trying them and just learning from them. I think by the time I got to the graduate stage, I did feel more confident. So probably where I had my most uncertain period actually was after my IBM placement. So I did get fast tracked to a final interview, but then that just didn't actually ever come. So it was at the end of it was very late at the end of my final year where I thought I was going to be starting a graduate scheme that actually then didn't materialize into anything. And so that was a very uncertain time. And that's where I kind of didn't really want to rush anything. I maybe tried the odd application here and there and thought maybe I'll kind of go down a consulting route or something because as I mentioned when I was younger, I thought I'd maybe do accountancy and then I kind of went away from that. And then I even thought about maybe investment banking. And I think it's honestly, it's a really confusing time. Like I didn't really know entirely what I wanted to do. I just knew the skills and what I kind of enjoyed. And so I kind of followed that. And then I decided to just not rush a decision. And that's when, because I knew I had a passion for teaching as well, I'd done the Teach First Insight program. I'd grown up tutoring on the side as well. So I told him I was doing random stuff, but I was kind of tutoring GCSE students as well while I was doing my A levels and so on. And I've always enjoyed teaching, and I thought I'd kind of take the opportunity in the year to really just try teaching for the year. There were still quite a few schemes open for a kind of year of teaching, and I didn't want to rush my next decision because obviously it kind of shapes the rest of your career. And who knows, maybe I would have continued with teaching. So that was also an option. But I think early on when I started teaching, I realized I still felt I wanted to learn. I think I still felt really young myself. My brother's 9 years younger than me. And so the kids that I was teaching in secondary school were kind of his age. And it all just felt as though I was still too young. And I feel the teachers who kind of were well respected, it just felt it kind of naturally comes as you're a bit older. So I just felt I still wanted to learn. And then that's actually when my dad actually said, "Hey, have you thought about becoming a chartered accountant?" And I thought, "What are you talking about?" Because we've had this chat. And then that's when I looked into it. And that's then when I started to apply for the roles. And then to answer your question and circle back in a very long winded way. But then I think at that time, I did feel quite confident. So I think I always knew that I would at least get through the kind of initial screening. And then obviously interviews and things are more difficult and you just never know. But I think by then, I think I was confident kind of applying for the big four. And I think that's kind of also where my career coaching and kind of interest has always been there as well, where I feel naturally it's something I feel that I kind of just, yeah, I feel like it's just something that I kind of enjoy and feel that I've naturally kind of warmed to. And so let me know, guys, if you do need help, because
Yeah,
I know you're
yeah.
entering that stage. But yeah, I think it's just something that I've always kind of just enjoyed as well.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, we will definitely be touching more on the coaching part at the end of the episode because we think that's such an important part that we haven't really talked about at all in any of the episodes done on the podcast. But there's just a highlight I want to take from your answer there about identifying the skill set you have and then seeing what careers match that instead of just being set on a career, because it is such a confusing time. I mean, students are expected to almost have a career in mind after A levels, and I think that's kind of insane to think about. And even in university it's tough at the same time. We're talking about applications. It's hard to it's very easy, to be tunnel visioned about, oh yeah, just investment banking or just accountancy or just consulting, and then you don't understand what open doors you're kind of just running past. So if you can identify what you're good at and then try and match that to a career, right, Naman?
Because a lot of students, they're kind of like doing it backwards. So they look at the job role, they see the skills that are good for it, and then they try work backwards on themselves instead of looking at what they're good at and then, moving on and seeing where they can, find a strong stance, if that makes sense. But I mean, yeah, that was a great response, because we know, like, just in finance alone, there's like hundreds, thousands of students who are literally out there so confused on what they want to do. So I think that is great insight. And
I was going to say on that as well, I'll be quite honest, because even, for example, I felt like the path that I then went down, it kind of felt like the kind of obvious path to then get the ACA, where everyone, I think the Big Four is well known for being a route to the ACA qualification. And that's kind of how I then found audit. But even at the time, I didn't really know the job too well. Obviously, I understood it all as I was applying. But I think it is quite difficult. And I was going to just say, even me at my stage now, where I've kind of worked in corporate for 8 years, there's still so many jobs out there and it's still quite confusing. I think there's no way you know every single job where I've done it. So I guess the advice I'd just give at this stage is just really, I think, yeah, see what it is that you like, the skills that you like. If you still want to learn, if you still want to get a professional qualification, but it's really just honestly the best way to do it is either trying it if you can get any kind of work experience, or just honestly speaking to people. So I think it's so great that you guys are doing this podcast, because I think it just opens a door to the conversations that, yeah, I guess people might not hear otherwise.
yeah, no, 100%. And I think this whole like response has been, a perfect like pivot onto the next section of the episode, which is actually like your corporate career and then your progression throughout it. So I guess one question to kick that off is then, what was your first impression of when you joined the Big Four, and how are things like, moving from uni, moving from teaching? How was it like?
So I might take it back just slightly to actually IBM. So that was actually my first corporate experience. And it's it's quite funny. So I think I found the transition from a uni student to a corporate job in a placement year kind of difficult actually, because when you kind of start, you're a lot of these kind of big corporate careers and big companies, you start with a lot of other graduates or a lot of other kind of placement students. So it's like it naturally feels as though you're still in that environment, if that makes sense. So it's kind of like, oh, you've made a new group of friends, like you're all getting to know each other, going for meals, going out, whatever you're doing. And it's also still quite fun. And obviously, they want that collaborative environment where you're enjoying yourself and getting to know people. But I think initially, I probably did kind of struggle with the lines of professionalism. So it was more just kind of, sitting with your team, but sometimes I'd maybe want to go and take my laptop and sit somewhere else, or just the kind of little things where you wouldn't think that it kind of is a bad thing to do, because it's not a bad thing to do, but it's more just, I guess these kind of things just kind of shape a picture to your kind of team that you're working with, in terms of, how proactive someone is, how engaged they are, whether they're kind of learning from those around them in their team. And so I think the reason I took it back to IBM with the question is probably because that's where I first realized actually there is a real difference between uni and kind of what I've known to then the corporate world, and kind of how you should kind of behave and think about how you come across and just how you interact with others. So there's always kind of a time and a place, of course, for when you're doing the socials and things. But I think from then I kind of learned actually and it was because early on, I think my manager just kind of had a check in with me. And I'm really, really grateful that so early on, they were really honest and kind of was just like, we've noticed this. What do you think? And I think from then I thought, okay, no, like, I'm really going to take all of this on board. And that's why I absolutely love, to be honest, I'm a bit weird, but I think I actually love kind of development points and feedback, because I think in the workplace, it is professional, it's not personal. And you can honestly learn so much. So I think that first corporate placement year, I think it just taught me a lot in terms of how to kind of navigate the corporate world. So I think because I had that year, I kind of felt that then going into the big four, I kind of already felt, even though I had, the year out with teaching, I think I still kind of felt that I could settle in them much easier and kind of know how to hit the ground running had I then not had that year, if that makes sense.
Yeah, oh, 100%. And I think not to compare too much because it is worlds apart. But when I first went into my internship, I think I kind of, I mean, people said to me just make friends, make sure everyone knows you, that sort of stuff. And there's a very it's a fine line between networking and just having a laugh all the time, if you know what I mean. I
Yeah.
think definitely that first sort of couple of days I was just like, yeah, I was at my desk, I was working, but then it was also kind of like, if someone offered, oh, do you want to go out for drinks after work? I was always like, yeah. If you want to go out for a meal, I was always like, yeah. But then I could have maybe stayed behind at work an extra hour, just not to be performative, but to actually get a head start on the next day's tasks and stuff like that. And so I think it is a fine line, as you said, but it also comes with just experience. I mean, everyone starts somewhere at the same time. And so
Mm.
for yourself, how did you kind of build credibility with those colleagues who had more experience than you? Do you remember kind of specific experiences or moments where you're like, okay, I know, as you said, kind of like the lines of the corporate world, you can understand that they've got more experience than you. So how do you kind of stand out and show that you belong in those rooms, if you get what I mean?
Yeah, so I think, to be honest, once you start out, so in the Big Four audit kind of graduate schemes, especially audit, everyone knows that you're new. Everyone expects you to be new. And I think in some ways you are given then a little bit of grace where you're in rooms with people who obviously know that you're very new, you're brand new, they don't expect you to know too much. And so it's actually a really great environment for you to learn. And I think what it ultimately comes down to is honestly probably your attitude and how much it shows that you are actively engaging and how much you want to be there. Because I think it is a real culture there where kind of everyone wants to, there's a real coaching culture. So everyone coaches everyone. It's like you really try and develop people, but it's like the ones that really stand out and the ones that probably go the furthest are the ones that themselves are kind of seeking, they're kind of really eager to learn themselves and they want to kind of grab all the opportunities. So it's, you can be in a room with people and you're of course in the room all the times with different levels of seniority, but it's just kind of then how you interact with them, kind of the questions that you ask, and just it's it's just honestly about kind of throwing yourself in, to be honest, but then in kind of that professional way, but at the same time just bringing your full self as well. I think because you're working with people day in, day out, um, it'll be hard to be someone you're not. I think, to be honest, I'd say not to really overthink it. And just, I think if you're just there and you essentially want to learn and you are learning from those around you, it's very clear if you're kind of there asking questions, but you're writing things down, you're making sure you're not asking the same question twice, you're kind of just showing that you're slowly learning. It just kind of builds from that. And I think that's probably early on how you can kind of gain the respect of others around you and think, oh, actually, I want them on my team because, they're a little bit switched on, like they want to learn.
Maybe zoning in more on the accounting side. So one major part of having a career within accounting is the ACA exams, which you've of course went through. So how did you like keep yourself motivated and whilst of course balancing crazy hours during revision and then work and then everything that comes in between?
I think, to be honest, I always made sure I put clear systems and things in place. I think, as I mentioned, with kind of my upbringing and how I approach things in school, I always knew this is my time to study. This is my time that I need to essentially lock in and make sure I do everything that I can to, be able to pass these exams. And I think when you're going through the ACA qualification and you're at the big four, there are real clauses in your contract linked to your exams. So you know that you have to take it seriously. And if you're there and you get that far, you kind of want to yourself, you want the qualification. And so for me, to be honest, I just really made sure that I put strong systems in place. So I would make sure I would have a solid routine, make sure that I would really plan in advance. I would really use annual leave and things in a way that would actually help me to be able to pass the exams, because ultimately I just didn't want any regrets with it. So I just really made sure. And I do share a lot online for the specific exams. And so people might be able to understand a bit more what I mean. In terms of what I actually did. But I think I just really understood the exams, the structures, and ultimately it is just question practice. You need to make sure that you're doing enough of that. And so I was just getting started early enough to make sure that I gave myself enough time. So by the time it had to come to the exam, I was much more confident because I've practiced, say, a set amount of questions and just given it then all the time that I possibly could.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's as simple as that, and of course, during university it's a lot easier because it's you might have a part time job, you might have a project or like a side hustle, but you're there to study, right? But I think it's always a bit daunting to students like us when, oh wait, we got to study and work. It always sounds a bit daunting, but
I
to
think
hear, sorry, go on.
No, go on. Sorry, that just sparked something because it is studying and working, but at the same time, you are also kind of put in college and you're also given designated study days. And that's why I also said you can kind of use annual leave in a way. So I think although it is studying and working, sometimes you can, in a way, kind of try to separate it as much as possible. So you have your work and then you'll go into college, have your set time, and then you'll kind of come back out. There will be definitely studying and working where you're kind of getting through questions in the background in the evenings and weekends, but it's kind of, in a way, you can sometimes try to segregate it a bit more. So it isn't, I think when you first hear it, especially as a student, before you've gone into it, you really think, I'm studying and working all the time, but actually there's only exams at certain periods of the year. You're only in college in certain periods of the year. So once you kind of get your schedule, that's when you can actually see, oh, actually it's kind of like this, and it's not as like continuously working and studying for a whole year at once, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it makes sense, and it's also encouraging to hear as well, because as I just said, it can be a little bit daunting from our perspective. So that is definitely encouraging to hear. I'm going to pivot a little bit back to the work that you're actually doing, and of course, I'm not going to go into details or anything. But could you share an example potentially of how you handled and how you managed like a difficult experience or difficult project, and something that was maybe kind of more difficult than you thought it would be, or like the first time we did a certain project or had a certain experience during your corporate career, and how did you kind of like manage it and deal with it?
I think, yeah, I've thought of a couple things. I've thought of one overarching theme, which in audit, it's the busy season. So that is kind of the known period where it's a very busy time. I think the hours are naturally longer. It's a lot more intense in terms of you're definitely working in the office or on client site or somewhere 5 days a week, most likely. Um, it it is just I think it's hard to explain it to someone who hasn't experienced it, to be honest, but I think just imagine kind of just an intensified working period for maybe kind of a couple of months. So that's kind of the overarching theme that I thought of. And so just in terms of busy season, I think I tried to understand it from others maybe and just kind of know what was coming. But I think after you've done your first one, to be honest, I think what's kind of good about the Big Four structure as well is kind of you start as a junior and then you kind of progress. And I think then naturally your responsibility increases. So even though you start off as a junior in busy season, your experience is not the same as, say, the manager in busy season. So I think I think it's just a really good time to learn. So I think it's again, when you kind of make yourself think, okay, this is this set period that is going to be intense. So I've thought that with exams and I kind of did that with busy season. I thought, okay, this is the period, but I guess it's the period where you will honestly just learn the most. You learn so, so much in such a short space of time. And so again, it's probably the time that you just think, do you know what? I'm going to show up for this and I'm going to try and get everything out of it that I can. And yeah, I think I think if you have the attitude of more of seeing it as a positive rather than a, oh, I'm dreading my life for the next few months now, I think that probably does help. But then in terms of kind of a specific situation, I think in audit, there probably always is kind of maybe difficult conversations and things if you're kind of identifying any misstatements, so just any kind of errors or kind of things in people's calculations. And people are usually a lot more senior than you, so you kind of go in as a brand new joiner. So I was a fresh grad pretty much, and you're speaking to people who are very senior in finance teams. And so I think when you kind of pick up something in their work and you think, oh, actually, I'm not sure that's kind of followed through correctly in your formula and your cells, and it's just a bit like it's a bit daunting to initially approach it. Yeah, but I think once you kind of it's just all experience. I think, yeah, it sounds really scary, I think, before you started. And if I go back to when I was about to start, I honestly had no idea what to expect. I thought I'd probably have to, you know, give up my life for the next 3 years to get the ACA qualification. And you have so many things that you think before you start. And then once you actually get there and you feel it out and you just slow, I think it's a really steep learning curve, but you kind of just work with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, we've got one of our friends who's an audit apprentice, and the months up till April,
Yeah.
he was putting the hours in.
Yeah.
But then, of course, as you said, it's experience, and then, I mean, in a way, it is kind of self-explanatory. Like, yeah, you'll have your first few busy seasons, but then after that, you can build on the last one, and yeah, it makes complete sense. But then now you mentioned during that response a steep learning curve, but then of course your own personal career progression was actually really fast. So could you just talk to us about that? How did you go from a junior position to all the way to a managerial position in such like a quick period of time?
So I think for me, I I don't know. Do you know what? Maybe also it is the fact that I did have that year of corporate experience looking back. I think I'm grateful for, because when I think about it, I knew, and something I would recommend that everyone does, and this is what I did day one, is I would kind of keep an activity log, I would call it. So I would just have a Word document that I would constantly always write down the kind of tasks that I was doing throughout the year. And I would just track any feedback. I think the big four always make sure that you kind of get feedback, every quarter. Well, the firm that I was at, let's say every quarter you need, say, 4 snapshots. So four pieces of feedback. And I think very early on, I always understood that the way to progress is through feedback. It's through your reputation. It's kind of through visibility as well. So you do need to, of course, know people, and you do. I think the bottom line is that you do your job well. But the reason that I'm touching on these things is just because you need to also be able, you're not just going to get the double promotion from hoping you get it. You kind of need to, you know, be, you need to be the one that is an advocate for yourself. You need to be having conversations with people. And I guess for me, in terms of doing the job, everyone around me was leaving, to be honest. So it was kind of just after I'd qualified, other people were all leaving. And then within the actual jobs that I was in, the people just above me as well were also leaving. It was just the time. And I guess I thought I could either potentially just, let someone else come in to take their role and manage, etc. Or I actually kind of saw the opportunity and thought, I feel this is something that I can do. So in terms of doing the job, I made sure that in my third/fourth year, I made sure that I was kind of doing the job of the grade of a manager and showing that I could actually do that. And it was about doing it well. So I really firstly made sure that I was doing my job well, also doing and showing that I had the skills to be able to manage well as well. Of course, you can't do everything, but I think where it's, engaging with specialists or just extra things that others might not be able to do as early on, and made sure to kind of grab those opportunities. And so I think that's kind of the basis of it. But then the other parts that I've mentioned, so the feedback, I made sure that I was kind of early on kind of setting objectives. And I think these go a long way. So I think if you can set objectives with your managers, whoever is in your team who gives you that feedback early on, and say, this is what I'm hoping to achieve. What would you need to see from me? What would I need to do to be able to kind of get this feedback from you? So, for example, if I had said, look, I'm going to step into this role now, I ideally want to get the manager experience and want you at the end of this engagement to be able to say, I think Jag would be a great manager. What would I need to do? And so, kind of setting objectives and then working towards those, and then being able to get that feedback, that goes a long way. And then the other thing that I mentioned is just kind of your reputation. So, I always made sure that in the firm, I was getting to know people outside of just the jobs that I was doing. So, I was, part of the social committee, or I was kind of volunteering for things, and just getting exposure in other ways and speaking to other people that I wouldn't have known otherwise. And then, of course, I was kind of building my personal brand online as well at the same time, which also then helped internally for kind of visibility as well. So I think it's something that I think was kind of where kind of opportunity met me also just taking advantage of it and just really just going for it. I was making sure others knew that that is what I was striving towards. Because you do kind of need to put yourself out there and have those conversations. And sometimes people are saying, look, I don't think it's going to happen this time. And you just need to hear that as well. I think having the conversation, other people will have so much advice that they can help you with and just give you the little tips. And so I'd really recommend just speaking to people, having the chats, and yeah, just seeing every year is different, every case is different. It of course depends on where the business is as well and whether they can actually then have that business case for you to also be a manager. And so I made sure then that for that next year, I was going to be put on jobs as the manager role. So what I was able to kind of show by the end of it is, look, I've been able to show that I can do a manager's job. The jobs that I'm going to do next year are all a manager's job. I will be essentially a manager. And then I also kind of had the feedback for others to back it up. And then the visibility where if somebody was speaking about me in the meeting and saying, hey, Jag wants to go for this double promotion, others in the room would then actually know who I am rather than thinking, I don't even know who that person is.
Yeah. No, for sure, 100%. And that was a brilliant response. And I think from that, again, I think you've just got to be intentional. I mean, for sure, you can go with the flow sometimes and not coast, but just kind of go with the flow, as I said. And but then if you're intentional and sometimes opportunities arise, and if you're not, kind of genuine, and if you're not driven and know where you want to be, then it's hard to identify this opportunity at the same time. And I think that was a really valuable response. And I think that leads us in great to the final question on this specific section about your career before we move into coaching, consecration, and personal branding. For students, our listeners, and our viewers, our audience as a whole, what skills, and you've touched on it broadly, but specifically, what skills do you think matter most for someone starting out in audit or accounting, or maybe even just broader corporate life today?
I think just broader corporate life. I don't know if it's a skill, but proactivity. I think you kind of just touched on it as well, but I think proactivity is massive. And I think had I not been as proactive, because I would always kind of seek out other jobs that I maybe wanted to work on. And it was kind of me trying to drive my career from early on. So I think proactivity is huge. Um, I think just, of course, when you're so new and you're just starting, you feel you don't want to be the person kind of speaking out and saying, no, I don't want to do this. And I wouldn't advise that either. I'd say kind of just see where the opportunities present itself and where you can kind of do things in a way that doesn't kind of disrupt too much. I think easier said than done. I think what I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to say is, for example, if you have a gap in your schedule, then you can kind of look for actually what you fill that with rather than waiting for it to be filled for you, if that makes sense. So it's just little things like that. So I think proactivity. But then to answer your question in terms of a skill, I think communication is honestly massive. And I think with technology advancements, AI and everything, I think the technical side of things, I think people might naturally get better at because there's more support there. But in terms of being the person who's, communicating with others, so others in your team, it's all the time. It's with the client, so you're interacting with management or you're interacting with, managers, directors, partners. I think communication's probably massive. And it just depends on what job role you're in, to be honest. But I think even teamwork, it's just, I think, do you know, people maybe underestimate how much kind of teamwork and collaboration and thing is actually involved in kind of, a corporate career or a grad job and stuff. But I think in my experience, there's actually always been quite a lot of it. So I think just being able to kind of work with people, understanding other people's preferences, I think just respecting other people, to be honest, in the workplace. Some people have different styles of communication. Some people prefer emails, some people prefer phone calls. It's just really kind of getting to know other people, but ultimately everyone you're working with is a person. And so it's kind of just having that mutual respect. And I think just, yeah, like I said as well, just being yourself. I think that's probably how you enjoy it as well.
Yeah, then that makes complete sense. And it's just the fact that, eh, especially within finance, like if you think about it, in the long term, many roles, they just kind of like turn into a sales role, and like and especially the managerial positions, of course, you have to be accounting for your team. So having, like, as you said, like an early I guess strength in communication and then any associated skill, I think it makes complete sense on why that's that's beneficial, and why that's sought after in this industry, and probably in every industry, to be honest. But anyways, I'm rambling, so I think it's a good time to transition onto the next section of this episode, which is talking about your I guess your love for coaching and content creation. Which is something that I guess is music to me, Nelly's ears, because that's the space that we really love right now. So I know you mentioned it earlier, so it was more after your teaching, that's when you first started thinking of coaching. So could you just talk more about that, and then like what really first pushed you towards sharing your experiences with others?
So yeah, so I think the teaching part is probably, it's always been the root of it. So it's always been from kind of a teaching angle. And I think even from when I was younger with maths and things that are quite complex, I realized that I am actually able to break things down in kind of a more simple way. Or I think because I kind of do really understand exams and the structures and what you need to do to kind of pass and things like that. I think I then have been able to kind of pass that on to others as well. So I think where it kind of started in the first place is it was actually, yeah, during COVID, I think it was. So I was on kind of a reduced working week scheme. So I think that was kind of, where there wasn't as much business or something. I can't really remember, to be honest, but they offered us a reduced week where you could kind of condense your hours. And so I took that up and I was kind of studying for my exams. And actually my boyfriend at the time, now husband, he was actually starting his own business and things. And I think naturally he was kind of more busy and outside of kind of studying. I think I saw him doing something and I thought, oh, I wonder what more I can do with kind of my time. And then I just randomly came across kind of just blogs online. So blogging just being a way that, you can just post stuff, maybe get a tiny bit of ad revenue or something. And yeah, it just seemed like I'd never really thought about having a blog before. So it actually just started with a blog, to be honest. And I was actually going to start it anonymously. So I didn't plan to be I didn't plan for it to be all about kind of me, my experiences. I just thought, hey, I actually know these good tips that help me pass the exams. I've just done these exams. Let me, write about it. And I I think my sister, she kind of wanted to do a travel blog as well, actually. And just, I think during my placement year as well, I did kind of a few blogs and things just on LinkedIn, just related to the industries I was working in. And so it kind of felt more natural to me, to be honest, to just kind of write things in like a blog format. And it was until I spoke to actually one of my really close friends and I ran him through the ideas that I had. He was also in audit, he was a year above me. And so I kind of said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this online blog, but I want to keep it anonymous. And his advice was, no, people will connect more with a person and it's probably more relatable if it is you that does it. Because as well, I couldn't really figure out how to have an anonymous LinkedIn or I didn't really, I hadn't really thought too much about it. So I thought, okay, let me just actually post it. And then it actually kind of snowballed. So I didn't, of course, think long term and I didn't ever really think I would start posting videos actually. So I started on the blogs and then I maybe shared it probably to LinkedIn, I think. And that's probably the most I'd do for kind of sharing. And then I saw an ICAEW vlogger position. And so that's the Professional Institute for the ACA. And so I applied for it and I actually got it. And so what that meant is then I could kind of just film day in the lives and random little things that I just probably wouldn't have otherwise, I think. I'm trying to remember. I think that is the order that it happened. Or I think maybe I hadn't started filming the day in the life just yet, but I think I did just start to film a bit more. And so I then got a little bit more comfortable kind of with the camera. And I thought, actually, maybe I'll start posting a bit more on, say, kind of TikTok and have an Instagram as well. And then I thought, oh, maybe I can actually turn these blogs into YouTube videos. And so that's kind of what I did. And then I think over time it just kind of snowballed where then I think it would like, I'm very fortunate. I think a lot of people have been really kind to me, and they've been really appreciative. And I think because of that, it kind of, I feel like I really just got a sense of purpose from it all. It just, I can't really explain it, but I just really enjoyed it. And I thought, I'm just going to kind of keep posting more. And then I started just sharing more. So that's when I kind of did like a day in the life during busy season, or just random things on TikTok. And then it got kind of a lot of views, mixed comments, of course, but it was just fun. And I thought, okay, let me just do more of this. And then, yeah, I think because I'd done the ICAEW vlogger, someone got in touch for then the podcast, and I jumped at it, obviously, because I thought this is so cool. So I thought, yeah, let me just try this. And I think I've just kind of been going with the flow and then just trying stuff. But it's only kind of now, and more recently, when I've actually thought, no, I want to try this a little bit more seriously. So actually putting in time and thought into it. And just even in the last few weeks, it's crazy how much I've learned that I was actually probably doing not wrong, but there's so many things I could have improved on. But I think looking back, I did really well to kind of do all of that alongside having a full-time job. But yeah, it's just been fun, to be honest. And I've just kind of followed my sense of kind of purpose. And yeah, I think I've just really enjoyed kind of then the helping people, and then that teaching aspect that I've still managed to kind of maintain in a way, just through the kind of exams and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then again, it's a perfect segue onto my next question, which is what then inspired you to begin coaching ambitious professionals? When did that start coming into it? And alongside telling your own story, of course.
Yeah, so that was actually only this year, and only probably a few months ago. So I think I think this year, so I went on a career break, and I really kind of thought about what it is that I want to do, what I kind of enjoy. And I have always known that I've really enjoyed kind of helping people, or even just helping myself kind of with, the CV templates to begin with. And I've always over the years kind of done little bits of that in the background, but I just hadn't really kind of branded myself in that way, but it was kind of still ongoing. So I was still over the years kind of maybe giving the odd one-to-one call and kind of helping people if they needed it. And so I think I just kind of reframed it in a way more than anything. So it wasn't ever kind of this huge big revelation to me, but it was more of, actually I want to do more of this stuff. I enjoy the coaching side of things. And I felt that's where now, as well, after kind of my years of experience, I felt that's where I can actually really add value and help people. And also kind of nowadays, or not nowadays, currently the ACA exams are undergoing a huge transition. And so even though there's still value that I do think comes from my previous tips and things, the exams still are kind of changing. So naturally, I also feel that I want to adapt with that. And to be honest, I feel it's been a little while now as well since I've kind of done the exams. And so, although I think I can still kind of help there, I just also wanted to just kind of reset and just think about myself and what my purpose is. And I think it's really also just all the career skills and tips and knowledge and things that I've built that way, and through my managerial experience and things, where I feel that's probably where I can share a lot more. And I think naturally you don't want content to be something where you're kind of forcing yourself for topics and forcing yourself for the creativity. And so I've kind of just followed what I kind of enjoy talking about, or where I just kind of have the natural ideas. So it's career coaching for sure, but it'll still have, ACA elements. It'll still have other, maybe even the odd personal finance bits and things. I think I'm trying not to really put even though they do say, know who your audience are, kind of, they don't so much say pick your niche and stuff, but I feel that I don't want to just pigeonhole myself in something, because I feel that's where you kind of limit yourself. So I want to just try more things. And I think recently I've just thought I'm just going to try and post things and just see what happens, because you may have an idea in your head of what's good and what will do well in terms of kind of, people engaging with it. But until you actually post it and see what happens, the algorithm does whatever the algorithm does, or maybe your audience just it doesn't resonate with them. And so you kind of I just want to try what I enjoy and then just take it from there. So at the moment it is kind of a career coach, but I feel maybe even a bit later down the line I'm thinking to kind of open up more and do kind of more um things to do with your personal brand as well, because I think that's something that I think has really helped me in my career and just in general. So yeah, I think as you're seeing with me, it's kind of a snowball and just things happening and just kind of checking in and just yeah, I think just seeing where I'm at, where what I enjoy and just taking it from there really.
This response you mentioned like a key word, which is literally encompasses the next section of the section of this episode, and that is personal brand. And we know, like we both know how important having a personal brand is, especially with how competitive different any role in finance has really gotten. So, could you just talk to us about when you first realized the importance of building a personal brand and what comes with it?
So maybe first realized is probably it was probably in secondary school. I'm not gonna lie, like I said, I've always kind of been interested in the career stuff and just wanted to kind of do what I can there. And that probably started with just LinkedIn. So I think having an awareness of LinkedIn, realizing actually just set your profile up, just do the basic things on there. Because I think even from kind of year 11, year 10, 11, when you're doing your work experience, I just wanted to make sure, I'm building my network. I think it's the network that's probably really important because you can't really have a personal brand without the network. They kind of come together in a way. And yeah, I just feel that it was, yeah, probably from a younger age when I felt a personal brand is important. But then I think as I've progressed and as I've kind of got more experience, I think that's when I've really seen the importance of it grow. So I think when I first got it, of course, I didn't really think too much of it. I just thought, oh, let me just add this person I've just met on LinkedIn and leave it at that. But then as you kind of, get more experience, it's a really, really great tool, for example, LinkedIn, because there are so many job opportunities and conversations and things that come from LinkedIn. I think as soon as you maybe even become ACA qualified, you will get recruiters maybe messaging you and things for roles. And it's just unless you kind of have put yourself out there, those opportunities kind of wouldn't come to you. So I just think it's important just in any professional space as well, just for others to kind of know more about you. And it just kind of it is your reputation, to be honest. And I think it's kind of what you're known for. So if you're known and seen as someone, who does bits in the industry, or you're seen in quite, a way that is kind of giving back or something, I think it does just help. I think it helps open the door with others and just having conversation. So from everything that I was able to do outside of work, I then was able to kind of bring that into the firm as well. And I, set up a kind of exam support team in my office. And there's just things that you can do. And I started facilitating training. And I think it's probably also just because I enjoyed it myself and my personal brand was kind of all around kind of teaching and things like that, that I was able to bring it in to the workplace. But yeah, I don't know. I just think it's important, to be honest. It can just help in many ways, but even if you don't see it at first, you just never truly know. And it's just, yeah, it's people hear of people, it's like word of mouth. And I guess, yeah, it's just the visibility part, to be honest.
Yeah, 100%. And that's such a brilliant response. And they all have been, to be honest. And it's bittersweet because we're coming on to our final three questions of the episode that for our regular listeners and viewers, everyone knows we ask these three questions to every guest because we think it really provides an amazing end to an already brilliant episode. So I'm gonna kick this off. And it's, as I said before we start recording, they're quite reflective questions. But for our listeners and our viewers and those aspiring students that are watching, they can really take value from it and maybe apply it to their own journey. So, looking back on your career journey, what stands out to you as being something you're the most proud of?
Probably the ACA. Or actually, maybe the double promotion, actually. I think the double promotion. that was defo a highlight. I think I worked really, really hard for it. And yeah, but I mean, that being said, like it's not always positive. So I think I even went in and had the same attitude for my recent promotion and I didn't get that. So I just wanted to throw that out there because this is what I mean. Like you can do all that you can, but then sometimes the business is a business or their circumstances and it doesn't go your way. And so it's also just a great learning opportunity as well. But I think, yeah, my highlight, yeah, or my proudest moment is probably that because I thought, okay, this is a point where I realized, okay, I'm actually doing well. Like, it kind of confirmed, yeah.
Yeah, and it's but as you said, irrespective, we appreciate the transparency by the way, but still that double promotion is very rare, so it does make complete sense. But then, so our second or penultimate question of the episode is then, if you could give your younger self any piece of advice, what would it be? You can choose what age you want.
Mm. I think, to be honest, I would give it to myself for a few years ago, and it would have been probably to start thinking longer term about my career. So I think once you're kind of in a grad job and once you're in a job and you're comfortable, and I think for me, I was always learning and I was continuing to progress and audit, the job changes so much. And so you don't think about it too much, but then it's almost as if I blinked and it's been 7 years now. And I think what you probably do or should do, to be honest, is I think I think and I think the reason that I personally know that the reason I didn't do so much of this as well is just because I had a difficult past few years just in terms of kind of personal life and things that were going on. And so I think I wanted stability in my job, but I think had that not, if I kind of put that to the side and I actually think kind of strategically more in terms of where I wanted to be, I think that probably would have helped. And so the advice that I would give is just really think about that because I think even now at this stage, I think at this current moment, I don't think I would want to be an audit partner. But then I think the fact of the matter is, if I really then properly thought about it a few years ago, how much more experience, transferable experience would I have got had I had that realization a few years ago and then moved on elsewhere? So it's one of those where you kind of do just think, yeah, always kind of think longer term about your career. So I do definitely advise think each year, are you still enjoying the job? Are you still growing and learning in your job? But then actually the other stand back is, but where do I actually want to be? What skills do I need? And kind of thinking, is this job then going to get me there? Or do I kind of need to pivot and try something else a bit sooner? Because if you're not doing it and you realize later, then there's other people who already have done that and you're kind of then in a different boat when it comes to, moving into the job market. You're someone with kind of say X amount of audit experience, whereas someone else is audit and something else. So yeah, it's I'd say just think more strategically or just always think of the bigger picture in terms of your career where you can.
Yeah. For sure, and hindsight is such a powerful thing, right? It's so easy to say now all of
Yeah.
this stuff, but that's the great part about being reflective because you never know when you might get a similar experience in the future. And unfortunately, we're on the final question of the episode. It's been really brilliant. So our final question is a bit of a not a loaded question, but it's got a lot of meaning behind it. So for yourself, what do you feel the biggest takeaway you hope our audience get from your story?
Thinking about everything that I've said, it's probably just go for it. Don't overthink too much. Like really don't overthink too much. Obviously think overthink, is my CV good enough? Is this good enough, etc. But I think in terms of kind of speaking to people, reaching out, in terms of grabbing the opportunities, in terms of, you know, because I think it's just based off what you guys have said in response to me, where you're like, that seems really hard or really overwhelming. And like it's natural because I thought the exact same. But I think just honestly, just try things out. only really learn from doing things yourself, knowing what actually it is that you enjoy. And I think the best way you can do that is just speaking to people or trying it yourself. So yeah, I'd say just don't talk yourself out of things, or don't think things are just, impossible, because I mean, I'm literally just a normal person, and there's so many other people who, achieve things that when you're kind of just a fresh grad, or you think is just so out of reach. But honestly, it's just have that good attitude, just throw yourself into stuff, and then just, yeah, just see where it takes you. But yeah, don't, I think just don't sweat it too much, to be
Yeah.
honest. Yeah.
Yeah. And what a brilliant way to end an episode. If you're going to do it in any way, that's how you do it. That is, Jag, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you. We really got into a lot of different facets within that episode. And I know for a fact, I mean, it helps that we're part of our target audience. So I know for a fact, if we got a really great insights and advice from it, I know our audience will as well. Anything you want to add, Naman?
I mean, and we appreciate the transparency, and also, like, I think this episode itself will be like a relief to our viewers, because a lot of, as I mentioned earlier in the episode, there's so many students who are like maybe a first year, maybe a second year, maybe a third year, maybe a graduate who will be going in and they're just going to be confused. So I think your advice of, like, for the overall bigger picture, just taking it a bit more easier, and then more, I guess, not stressing too much. I think that is a genuine great relief for them. So we appreciate that.
For sure. Well, thanks again, Jag, for your time and for your efforts, and for our listeners and viewers, for our viewers who are watching us on YouTube, and for some reason you haven't already subscribed, then I'm sure Jag has given you a brilliant reason to do so. And similar to our audio listeners as well, no matter what platform you're listening to us on, you can drop us a follow, you can drop us a rating on Spotify as well, and you can drop a comment on either platform if there's someone we should be speaking to on the show that we haven't spoken to yet, or a topic that we should cover on the podcast that we just haven't got to covering yet. And please do show us some love and engagement on our social media platforms. We're announcing our tour of events around the UK very, very soon, including our going to universities and going to schools, but also you can look at joining the team and maybe even helping write some of our very own student-led articles and student-led journalism. But as usual, thank you so much for watching and listening, and we'll see you next week for yet another episode of the Smart Money Show. Take care until then, and stay tuned. Thank you.